Alright, so in the last lesson we went over division IDs in basic CSS. And then today right now I want to talk about classes. And last time in the last video I kept calling these divisions. They're actually called IDs. So I'm sorry for the confusion, but these are actually IDs. Now I did change the website up, the one that we've been working on. And there's a reason for that, and this is it right now. The reason I changed it up is because I'm going to post this particular version online so that you can go and visit it yourself and take a look. And I want you to try to recreate it, or just look at the source code and see how I did it at least. Trying to recreate this website on your own is actually going to be very good practice for you. For anybody beginning out, this is how I learned, is I started trying to recreate pages that I can find online. And this is a basic one that would let you try to recreate it. So I would highly recommend you doing that. But before you can recreate this, I need to teach you about classes. Alright, so this is the CSS code for the website I just showed you. And I'm going to show you the difference between IDs and classes. Alright, remember these are the IDs, and they affect large areas or large groupings of things. Alright, and this is the HTML code for the website. Alright, so when I did an ID, this div ID, it carries with it a lot of declarations, a lot of attributes. Remember all of these things it carries with it. Okay, so sometimes you only want to carry a few things, and you don't want to use it throughout the entire division, right? Because this is going to apply to the entire footer division. So what if there was something in the footer division that I wanted different from the rest of the footer? But I didn't want it to affect the entire division. You could use a class. And the way you do a class is just a period, then whatever you want to call it. Alright, and that would be a class. So I have two classes defined here. I have one class that I've called titles, and one class that I've called margin. And again, you can call it whatever you want. Alright, well, let's go and look at the titles class and how I used it first. Alright, so I gave it a display, which is inline. And what an inline does is there's two different types of HTML tags. There's the ones that you can use and put a bunch of things together, and they'll be side by side. Right, so if you used an italics tag, and then you closed it, and then you started typing, it would still be in the same line as whatever that italic text you used. Now remember, if you used a headers tag, once you close that header tag, it's going to move everything down a line after that. Remember, it automatically has a line break attached with it, the H tags. So what I've done here is I've created a class called titles, and I said display inline, which removes that line break from whatever tag that I'm going to use it for. So for example, alright, let's go to the very top. Okay, I have an H1 here, and I gave it that class of titles, which has that display element of inline. So right here, this is going to be header 1, and I called it HTML for Beginners Newspaper, which remember is our website, which is main header for the website that I created, HTML for Beginners Newspaper. And I said newspaper because this kind of looks like a sloppy version of a newspaper. So now with the titles class, this has an inline attribute, which gets rid of that line break that it normally has. And remember, it usually gives a blank white space. So I put a BR here, which is why this goes down to the next line, but doesn't have that big space in between, because I got rid of that with the ID class. Okay. So now I put it here, and I also gave this a titles class, alright, because it's also a header. This one's an H4. So I gave it this class so it would display inline. And that's the reason that it can be right underneath this. Now remember, the very first lesson that we gave, if we put two header tags beside each other, they push each other away from one another, and they had this big empty space in the middle. But with that inline display, or the display inline, it gets rid of that. Okay, so that's what I did there. That's what that particular code does. And the next class I created, I called it margin. I mean, again, you can call these anything you want. And it has attributes of margin left 5 pixels, margin right 5 pixels. And I'll show you where I use that. Alright, down here, this is a regular paragraph tag, and I gave it a margin class. Okay, so what that did is it's going to give a margin on left and right hand sides of 5 pixels. Alright, and I'll show you where that's being used. Alright, all this regular text is all in the paragraph tag, and it's all using the margin class. Alright, so it has a 5 pixel margin on the left and right. And the reason I did this is this text right here would normally butt up against this border if I didn't give it a margin. Alright, and it would also butt up right here next to the white space. So I gave it a class margin, and I gave it 5 pixels on each side, which gives us this little space, keeping it from butting all the way up next to the end. And I did that with all of these paragraphs. Alright, I gave them all a paragraph tag with a margin class. Alright, now I could have used that margin class up, with the headers. I could have said H4 class margin, and it would have given that H4 a 5 pixel margin on each side. Alright, but then in this case I just used it with the paragraph tag. Okay, so now that's what classes are, and you can create them, call them whatever you want. You can give them any attributes that you want. Alright, and I just taught you 2 new ones, the display and text inline. You can also go to w3schools.com and you can find a whole bunch more different types of attributes you can use, and they all follow the same pattern. This is the way you basically use them. Alright, and when you type them, the format's always the same. It's going to be display, colon, whatever you want, and then that semicolon to start the next attribute. Alright, so if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment and let me know. But you can go to this website. It's www.thejoshes1.x10.mx, and this will be the page that you will see. Alright, and if you're using Firefox, you can right click, go to View Page Source, and it will pull up the HTML document. Alright, and if you're using Internet Explorer, then you just right click and it'll say View Source somewhere on your menu. Alright, and it'll say View Source, just click that and it'll take you to the same thing. Alright, so this is the HTML that I was using. Okay, my HTML sheet. And then what you can do, if you want to see the CSS sheet, you go right up here to the top where I've linked the CSS sheets. Remember I taught you how to do that in the last lesson? And just click right here on style.css. And it will pull up the CSS sheet. Alright, and if you're used to seeing it in Notepad++ where everything's color-coded, you can just copy and paste this into a new Notepad++ file, and it will highlight and save everything the same way that you're used to seeing. Alright, so that's how you see both the sources. And I'll also put it right here, see HTML, I told you how to do it, see the CSS, I'll tell you how to do it. And of course, if you have any questions, you can email me. My email address is on this page right here, or you can just click this link and it'll take you to, it'll automatically get ready to send me an email. Alright, and you can ask me any questions you want, and I'll get back to you relatively quickly. Alright, so I would suggest that you try to recreate this, and if you want to email me your HTML file and your CSS file when you're done, want me to take a look, I'll be happy to take a look or help you with anything. Completely up to you. And so that's going to be the basics of CSS and the basics of HTML. And make sure you watch my video about what not to do in web design. That's going to be very important. And be sure to leave comments for any questions.